This is a fascinating subject regarding Joe Rogan and the moon landing. This is one of the most fascinating subjects that one can possibly deal with, and it has nothing to do with the moon landing, or whether it was a hoax, or whether it was done by Kubrick on a studio lot, or whether it's real, or whatever. Recently, Joe Rogan had a fellow named Bart Sibrel, S-I-B-R-E-L, and he basically posited the theory, the hypothesis, the claim, the accusation, that the entire moon landing was a hoax, that it never occurred, and that it never occurred for a variety of reasons. Number one, the fact that it was impossible. It was impossible to even achieve or to allow to happen. The Van Allen belt and radiation levels would have basically killed anybody who dared to traverse it. Forensic evidence of the films that were allegedly provided to establish such were disputed and broken down and debunked as being impossible or fraudulent or stupid or whatever. That doesn't matter. That's not the issue. It's not. The issue is belief. The issue is how Joe Rogan handles this. The issue is how Joe Rogan knows you can debunk and you can go along. How do I say this? You can veer from the official narrative to an extent. He is the template for what is or is not allowed. Let me explain a couple of rules. And there's a lot here to unpack. A phrase I hate. First, if Joe Rogan ever traverses that line, that Van Allen belt of permissibility when it comes to subjects, he will be crushed, shelved, dismissed. I don't care how much he makes. I don't care about Spotify, or it does not matter. He will be crushed. As an example, he, in the universe, means nothing. I think he has been transformational in terms of information and opinion theater. I think he is a performance artist in the truest sense. He has made wonderment and discussion. And I think he and Lex Friedman and Tucker Carlson, to an extent, are, again, transformational. But Joe Rogan realized something a while back. Right around COVID, he decided to say something which really wasn't, I don't think it was even mildly provocative as far as either COVID or vaccines or something. I don't even know what it is. All I know is they laughingly enlisted the help of Neil Young, who dared threaten to remove the Neil Young catalog. Imagine not being able to have Cowgirl in the Sand at your disposal on Spotify. And then others jumped in. I think Nils, was it Lofgren or Niels Bohr? Or was that Lars? Was that Phyllis's husband on Mary Tyler Moore? In any event, there were some others. I think maybe Stills might have done something. I think Joni Mitchell may have done some putative attempt to stand behind the COVID truth, and you can take that however you want. And Joe did, I think, a very sincere kind of an apologia, mea culpa, said, look, I'm sorry, whatever. And he learned his lessons. He said, I'm not going to go through that again. Because Joe Rogan is first and foremost a businessman. He's smart. He's not going to do something that's going to destroy his career. And he knows the boundaries. He knows the boundaries of what he can and can't say. And I'm telling you something. I am an expert in this because I came along. It came about in the world of talk radio in the mid to late 80s, walked through the period of Rush Limbaugh, was on WABC did mornings and afternoons, and WOR. So I've been through that commercial. Then did actually the very first online, if you want to call it, digital platform before there was even broadband able to handle that. And then other iterations of it. So I've seen this. And I can tell you how truth and how censorship have evolved. In the old days in talk radio, all we cared about, or anybody cared about, was saying the F-bomb or the N-word. Just a few things. Short of that, it was a Wild West. I mean, you could say pretty much anything you wanted. But now all of that changed drastically. All of that changed drastically. So anyway, so here's Joe, and he's talking to this fellow. And Joe is doing everything in his power to debunk this guy. He's trying to provide an atmosphere where he's listening, but really doesn't. And this individual, this fellow who comes along, Mr. Sibrel, who is going to be immediately portrayed as a nut. That's first and foremost. Remember, not only are you wrong, but you are crazy. You are mentally defective. That's what they do. That's critical in this whole thing, okay? So then they put him on, and you look at him, and the first thing you do is you size him up, and you say, well, what does he have? What does he really know? Why is he the only one here? Why aren't there other people? And then we get into that issue. So why is he the only one? Why aren't other people doing it? And I'll get to that as being the best evidence, I'll save for last. The best evidence that debunks the debunkers. The best evidence that we landed on the moon. Or the best evidence that there's no information or no evidence that we didn't land on the moon. But what Joe Rogan is doing is Joe Rogan, whenever you, and here's a rule, all you podcasters out there, whenever you can, in your heart, debunk something which is considered to be a verboten conspiracy theory, whatever it is, and you can do it and you believe it, because believe me, if you do not believe what you're saying, it comes through. It comes through as disingenuous and not real. If you dare to promote something, it comes through in your voice. It comes through in your speech. It's not believed. So Joe takes this opportunity to send a message out to his handlers, to the overlords, to the people who pull the levers, to the people who allow him to be the kind of like revolutionary wild card wild man. You can talk about drugs, you can cuss all you want, you can have Joe Diaz on and just wax vile, doesn't matter. But there are certain subjects you are not going to ever get into, ever, unless you get proper and prior approval from us. Prior restraint, you better believe it, okay? You got it? Okay, good. Now, what's also important to know and what's critical for all of us to understand is that it is one of the things that is cognitively impossible for some folks to grasp. The idea that the singular most important scientific and technological advancement of the United States didn't happen. That the singular important, the event which gives us the expression, well, you know, from a people that landed on the moon to mapping the genome to landing on the moon. And since man landed on the moon, it's a part of our collective claim to fame. So humanity took a page out of the celebration book. Humanity did that. You understand what I'm saying? Humanity did this. Humanity was a co-participant, a beneficiary of this. So if if this fellow, if old Bart here, if Mr. Sibrel or Sibrel or whatever, however you pronounce his name, if old Bart is correct, we all lose. Not only that, we were duped. We were duped by everyone. Duped by government, duped by science, duped by Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. But still, we were duped. And if that's not true, what else? What else are you lying about? Now, people are becoming more and more aware of what people have been lied to and about. From Vietnam to JFK to RFK to Martin Luther King to you name it, to now we're finding out Watergate. And there are more people, more folks, more people on platforms, absolute scholars, who may not look that impressive, who may not have any media credentials, who may not have the Botox look, who might be broadcasting from their bedroom with clothes strewn on the bed. Mr. Bart here is, you might look at him, he doesn't come across as anything, out of the ordinary. But what does somebody out of the ordinary look like? What do they look like? There are people who devote their lives to an expertise. I can tell you this much: as a lawyer in a courtroom, when you have somebody qualify as an expert witness, they don't have to have a degree. I remember one time there was a court where there was a teenager who qualified and was certified as an expert for scuba diving. This was in a Florida case years ago. But he knew as much about anybody and could opine about the safety or practice or whatever. So to be an expert today, there are people who are autodidacts and people who either never went to college. I think Joe Rogan knows probably more about things than you could ever imagine. And I don't know about Joe's, quote, education, but as we're finding with the complete worthlessness of a Columbia or Harvard or Ivy League diploma, it means nothing. So, that being said, so to sort of recap, Joe Rogan said, all right, I'm going to bring this guy on. And I'm going to have this in my vault. I'm going to be able to say, now, wait a minute. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. When they lowered the boom on something Joe has said, he said, wait a minute, I was the one who debunked the moon guy. I did it. I'm one of you. Okay. I was thorough in my protestation of that thought, that idea. Oh, yeah, you're right about that, Joe. I was. And it's also popular to, I hate to say it, look at this guy. What does he have? He's got some videos. I don't know what people want. In terms of proof that would once and for all prove to them that we never landed on the moon. I don't know if people are possible. Do you think it is possible to prove that there is no God? Do you think anybody in the world who is a devout believer in anything, irrespective of their religion, is going to want to believe that there is no God? I think not. Do you think they want to hear you explain, and not a la Dawkins, bless his heart, or Dennett, or Hitchens, or Harris, or one of those? No. People don't want to hear this. Do you really want to see a film of your conception? No. But you know what happened, but you kind of glorify the sanctity of your introduction into the world. You can't think of your mother in a French maid's outfit and daddy with half a load on in the back of a Buick. It doesn't work. The truth is a terrible thing. A mind is a terrible thing. Remember that? We don't want to hear this. And if you are to tell me, I don't care what it is, if you're telling me that, number one, the landing on the moon never happened, then what else are you lying about? And how stupid do we feel? And you see, one of the things which is so interesting, and Joe Rogan was so perfect. Remember, Joe is filing this. The next time somebody says, okay, Joe, we're going to pull your Spotify deal. Now, wait a minute. I debunked the moon guy, so I'm okay. Had Joe gone along with this, if Joe Rogan dared allow himself, or dared to allow himself, to be in any way connected with this guy, and I say this guy because I don't know what that means, but, look at him. I don't know what people have to look like, but look like him. Joe Rogan would never, and my suggestion to you is if you want to stay in this business, do not. There's no Sicilian expression that says if you can get in trouble for saying a little, think what happens if you say a lot. So my suggestion is don't you ever publicly align yourself. I don't care what you believe in. Same thing goes with your COVID or mRNA theories. The coast is not clear, my friends. I don't give a damn what you think, and you might feel this tremendous sense of, I'm going to tell the truth. Okay. I have been through this. You see, let me explain something to you. A conspiracy theory, that word it's not even applicable. But I'll tell you about 9/11 or moon landings or now we're going after what really happened in Watergate. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Bobby Kennedy's in the race and he's talking about stuff. Let me tell you why people hate them. Number one, they hate for you to say, oh, you didn't know that? Because what you're telling them in effect is, oh, you didn't know that? Oh, you didn't know that? You mean I know something you don't know? Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, I see. You dumbass. That's kind of what they're saying. You dumbass. You didn't know this, and I knew this. Okay. That's what it means. And people hate that. Remember the old Nathan Thurm? I knew that. Of course I knew that. I knew that. Martin Short? Yes, I knew that. Of course I knew that. People hate for you to. And you can even hear a lot of people just jump into it. And what I wish Joe would have said is, look, I don't know anything about this, but Mr. Sibrel, whatever, go ahead. Let me hear what you have to say. Make your best case. I'm not going to stop and interrupt you and give my hypothesis. Well, maybe the reason why this was because of that. Maybe the reason why the Van Allen belt postulate doesn't work is because of the fact that we today have technology which is more susceptible. I say, don't try to dispute him. Don't devil's advocate him. Don't right brain him versus left of susceptibility. Don't do that. Let the man speak. Oh, no. That was for the file. That was to show the shadow government overlords. Now, wait a minute. Don't take my channel away. I put that moon guy, and he was very rude. I mean, very polite. And I don't think Joe did anything to really dispel, but that's the way that's going to be read. Now, here's the bottom line I told you. How do I believe, what's the best evidence that I have that this story is either true or not subject to being debunked? What do you think it is? What do I have? Simple. Point number one, I can't count the countries that hate the United States. Right or wrong, you know it's true, I know it's true. We just don't know. Number two, anything they could possibly do to embarrass us, to dispute some claim that we have, like landing on the moon, they would be front and center. Number three, the world has some of the greatest scientists who are not necessarily American and not necessarily at NASA or the Jet Propulsion Labs and the like. Number four, Russia, maybe not the current iteration, but certainly was beaten to the moon by the Americans. JFK said, before this decade is out, and he was already dead. Oh my God. They got to hurry this up. Von Braun said, forget it. There's no way we're going to get this thing done. I remember the Russians had put everything from the dog, what was it, Laika, and the woman, and Yuri Gagarin, and Sputnik, and I mean, they owned space. And this was, I guess, This was the brass ring. And they were going to let the Americans sit back, lose, and then out of nowhere come from the back of the pack to the front and win? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. You hear what I'm saying? I don't think so. I don't think so. So if there was any way that any of their spies, scientists, anything, right now especially with what's going on in the world, what do you think would be the fallout if somebody says, oh, by the way, folks, my name is Dr. So-and-so, I'm with, I don't know, Iran or Russia or China or Italy or wherever, I'm from somebody. And we have put together a study, a compendium of the either eyewitnesses and experts to prove once and for all that the United States did not land on the moon. And here it is. They would do anything in their power to do that. Anything. Anything. But they haven't. Do you think a deal was made? A deal was made for what? Do you see the United States laying back with one group or another? I mean, you could argue. Many people are trying to say, what's this connection America has with Israel? Now, please, let me just tell you. I'm not suggesting this, but people have said, what is this? You think Israel knows? You don't think that the Russians, and not Putin, but even before that, you don't think that somebody with their spy work and their, again, having the best scientists who themselves can look at this and say, this never happened. You can't go to the moon with that suit, with that thinness, with that power, with that. No. It's never been said. The only people, the only thing we know, the only one is our friend Bart Sibrel, whatever his name is, and Joe Rogan. Isn't that interesting? The only, you would think this would be so, I mean, there would be like an ICJ version of this. You think in the Hague, there would be nation after nation filing documents. There would be this absolute flooding from people who would do everything in their power to bring America down into its knees. And yet, there's nothing. There's nothing. Isn't that fascinating? So there's a lot to think about here. And as you will find with me, oftentimes the fascinating story is not the story, but what the story means. Have a great and a glorious day, my friends. Don't ever change. I mean this sincerely. Please do me a favor and subscribe. I always wait at least to the end. I don't ask you to subscribe before you've heard what I've said, in case this is the first time. I hate when people do that. Subscribe, like this. Like, I haven't said anything yet. Okay, so I've said anything. I've given you 24 minutes roughly of good stuff. So please like it, subscribe. And in the comment section, please, if you could, comment as you see fit.